Ladies and gentlemen, in the next hour, I'm going to turn you into an editor who can create two powerful editing styles that are in high demand. These styles are blowing up in the documentary niche, and many YouTube channels are searching for skilled editors who can bring this cinematic look to life. Today, I'll break down two high-quality video segments inspired by MagnatesMedia, showing you exactly how to recreate them. Plus, you'll get all the assets and project files for free. Just check the description below. Let's dive in. Let's take a closer look at the original video. You'll observe a dynamic scene featuring a detailed train, oil rigs in the background, workers in the distance, a factory backdrop, and the train tracks themselves. Our initial focus will be on recreating and animating the train. I've compiled all the required assets into a single Photoshop file, which will make our workflow more efficient. The first step in our After Effects process is to import our regular assets. This includes PNG and JPG image files, as well as any video assets. We'll import these directly into our Assets folder. However, we'll handle our Photoshop files, specifically the train asset, a bit differently. We'll import the train's PSD file as a composition, ensuring we retain layer sizes and editable layer styles. This will result in the PSD file being imported as a pre-composition layer. Inside this pre-comp, you'll find the engine layer and 3 layers representing the train's bogies, or carriages. To control the train's movement, we'll create a new null object. Null objects act as invisible controllers, allowing us to manipulate multiple layers simultaneously. We'll select all the train layers, including the engine and bogies, and parent them to the null object using the Mobile tool. Parenting creates a hierarchical relationship, where the child layers follow the transformations of the parent layer. We'll then rename each layer for clarity, engine, first, second, and third for the bogies, and pos controller for the null object, signifying its role as the position controller. Finally, we'll adjust the overall size of the train to fit our composition. Now, let's focus on the train's movement. If you watch the original video closely, you'll notice that the train's coaches exhibit a slight up and down motion. To replicate this, we'll animate each coach and the engine individually. We'll begin by separating the position dimensions of each layer into X and Y components. This allows us to control the vertical movement independently. To add an expression to the Y position, we'll Alt-click the Y position stopwatch. In the expression editor, we'll navigate to JavaScript Math and select the Math Sine function. This function creates a sinusoidal wave, which will produce the desired up and down motion. We'll modify the parameters of the Math Sine function, changing the value to time. This tells After Effects to use the current time as the input for the sine wave. Now, you'll observe that the train engine is moving in a small up and down motion. To increase the frequency of this motion, we'll multiply the time variable by 5. This will make the engine move up and down more rapidly. To increase the amplitude, or the height of the motion, we'll multiply the entire expression by 4. However, you might notice that the engine has shifted from its original position. To correct this, we'll add an offset to the expression. Adding 50 shifts it further down, so we'll add -50. This will bring the engine back to its starting position while maintaining the up and down motion. We'll apply the same expression to each of the coaches. We'll copy the expression from the engine and paste it onto the Y position of the first coach. You'll notice that the coach is displaced slightly upwards and the motion frequency is identical to the engine. To correct the displacement, we'll adjust the offset from -50 to +20. To change the motion frequency, we'll modify the time multiplier, changing it to 6. This will create a different up and down motion for the coach compared to the engine. You can experiment with these values to fine-tune the motion to your liking. We'll repeat this process for the second and third coaches, adjusting the time multiplier and offset as needed to create unique motions for each coach. This will give the train a more realistic and dynamic look. Now, let's move on to creating the rotating tyres and coupling rods. We'll begin with the tyres. I've prepared a Photoshop file for the tyre, which we'll import as a pre-composition. We'll adjust the composition width and height to HD, 1920 x 1080, to ensure it fits our main composition. We'll rename the layer Wheel. To add texture to the tyre, we'll import a texture asset from our Assets folder, reduce its size, and use it as a track matte for the wheel layer. We'll change the blending mode of the texture layer to Multiply to blend it seamlessly with the tyre. To add thickness to the tyre, we'll pre-compose the wheel and texture layers, naming the pre-comp wheel. We'll then make this pre-comp layer 3D, activating the Z dimension. In a 2-view layout, we'll separate the position dimensions and Alt-click the Z position to add an expression, index. This expression refers to the layer's numerical index. Each time we duplicate the pre-comp, the Z position will shift by 1 pixel. Duplicating it 10 to 14 times will create the illusion of thickness. We'll then parent all these layers to a null object, which will control the rotation of the wheel. We'll add rotation keyframes in the Z direction, rotating the wheel to 720 degrees. To loop the rotation continuously, we'll Alt-click the Z rotation stopwatch and add the expression loop out cycle. Now, let's talk about today's sponsor, Mobar Tool. First and foremost, simply download this from the link in the description for absolutely free. After installation, you will find this in the extensions panel. So, firstly, let's dock this panel. The first thing is that if you click on any panel, you will get a question mark icon. Clicking on this will provide all the info on how to use that particular panel. You can also simply undock any specific panel and use it for your work. You can mark them as important and access them quickly. By clicking the Hide All button, you will get access to your favorite tools. You can also create a separate panel and add your frequently used tools to it. For example, I can add the tint effect to it and also change the icon and its color. Now, I will show you some use cases of its tools that are frequently used and make our workflow 3x faster. The first one is select matching property. With this, you can edit the same properties of different layers at once. For example, here, you can select and edit all the size properties of wiggle paths together. Next, if you want to apply the loop in and out expression directly to multiple layers, select their keyframes, then choose Key Looper from the Keyframes section. You can also control its settings from the Effects Controls panel. You can also offset multiple layers however you want. Just select the layers, choose Offset Layers from the Layers section, and change the settings according to your requirements. For easing keyframes, simply select your keyframes and choose the type you want. You can also offset the keyframes as you like. Just select Offset Keys from the Keyframes section. Other frequently used features include anchor point positioning, creating null objects from multiple layers, and many more. Now, let's get back to editing. We'll import the wheel pre-comp into our main train composition, make it 3D, and position it at the location of the train's first tyre. We'll adjust the orientation and XYZ rotation to ensure the tyre is correctly aligned. We'll duplicate the wheel layer for the second tyre, reducing its size by 1% and adjusting its position. We'll repeat this process for the third tyre, reducing its size by 1 to 2%. Finally, we'll parent the 3D wheel layers to the engine layer, so they move in sync with the engine's up and down motion. Now, let's add the coupling rods that connect the tyres. We'll import the coupling rod PNG from our Assets folder, make it 3D, and position it at the first wheel. We'll use the pen tool to create an oval shape, which will serve as the path for the coupling rod's motion. We'll name this shape layer Path. We'll copy the path from the Path layer and paste it into the position keyframes of the coupling rod. you'll notice that the rod is rotating anti-clockwise and is displaced from its correct position. To fix this, we'll adjust the anchor point of the coupling rod to the edge where the rotation occurs. Pasting the path again will now rotate it from the correct position. To change the rotation direction to clockwise, we'll select all the keyframes, right-click, and choose Reverse Keyframes. To loop the motion, we'll Alt-click the position stopwatch and add the expression Loop Out cycle. We'll pre-compose the coupling rod layer. Inside this pre-comp, we'll refine the path to make it smoother. We'll adjust the control points to create a perfect oval shape. We'll delete any overlapping points and fine-tune the position. We'll add a transform property to the coupling rod layer to make further positional adjustments. You'll see that the coupling rod is now moving perfectly in sync with the wheel's rotation. We'll duplicate the coupling rod layer for the second set of wheels, positioning it and reducing its size by 5%. We'll adjust the path within the pre-comp to correct its positioning. While the two coupling rods are slightly out of sync, it's not noticeable in the overall composition. We'll desaturate both coupling rods using a hue saturation effect. We've now completed the train, tyres and coupling rod animations. Next, we'll add engine smoke. I've downloaded a smoke asset from YouTube. We'll trim the required section and remove the green screen using the keylight effect. We'll position the smoke layer below the engine and rename it Smoke. We'll duplicate the smoke layer and position the duplicates to create a more voluminous smoke effect. To add variation to the smoke, we'll apply the turbulent displace effect and adjust its settings. We'll duplicate and arrange the layers on the timeline then pre-compose them. We'll repeat this process, creating multiple pre-comp duplicates to fill the composition. We'll pre-compose all the smoke layers and name it A Smoke. Now, we'll enhance the train with lighting effects. We'll create a white solid layer named Light and place it at the top of our layer stack. We'll use the Mask tool to create a mask over the train's headlight area and adjust the feathering to create a soft glow. We'll duplicate the light layer and slightly adjust the mask to create a more dynamic lighting effect. To add a cinematic touch, we'll apply the glow effect to the duplicated light layer. To create a flickering effect, we'll animate the opacity of the light layer. We'll set keyframes at 100%, 50%, and back to 100%, creating a dimming and brightening cycle. To loop this effect throughout the composition, we'll Alt-click the opacity stopwatch and add the expression Loop Out Cycle. We'll repeat this process for the light on the top of the engine. Adjusting the color to an orange hue to resemble a bulb. Our train is now nearly complete. We'll add final color grading adjustments to unify the scene. We'll then bring the train layer back into our main composition. To give the train a more integrated look, we'll apply a texture overlay. We'll import a texture asset and duplicate the train layer. We'll then track map the texture layer to the duplicated train layer, changing the blending mode to overlay. This will blend the texture with the train, adding depth and realism. To finalize the color grading, we'll add a tint adjustment layer. We'll adjust the colors to match the original video's warm yellow-orange tone. By manipulating the map black to and map white to settings, we will achieve the desired color correction. We've now achieved a look very similar to the original video for the train section. With the train animation complete, we're ready to move on to the next phase of recreating the entire scene. We've successfully animated the train's coaches, engine, tyres, and coupling rods, and added realistic smoke and lighting effects. We've also applied final color grading adjustments to match the original video. We've made significant progress in replicating the train section of the MagnatesMedia video. So, our next target is to create the further assets like the miners, oil rigs, and the remaining elements. Firstly, to organize our project, we'll select all of our pre-comp layers and create a new folder named Comps. After that, our target is to create the miner layer, in which you can see that the miner is using an axe, which is used by miners to say, destroy the stones. We need to animate these things, including the miner and his hands, as if he's using an axe to destroy the stones. We will import our miner PSD, and again, we will import it with retain layer styles and editable layer styles. It will come as a pre-composed layer, and upon opening the layer, the next thing that we will do is to rename all the layers of the miner. We will rename the main component as body, and we will rename the left hand as left of the left hand layer, and we need to position this left hand layer and make it as the right hand of the same miner, because we do not have the right hand of the miner. And make it as the right hand by rotating and transforming, like flipping it horizontally and vertically. We need to do this task, and as you can see on the screen, we have done that. And now we just need to position it onto the right place, as you can see on the screen. So after positioning it, and if you can see that some part of the right hand is visible behind the body, so we will mask out that part and change the mask to subtract from the body. So our next target is to provide animation to the hands and the axe. So the next thing that we need to do is to make a null object. So we will select both the left and right hands, and we will make a null object with the help of the Amavar tools. And we will rename the null as axe controller. And now we again need to change the position of the anchor point just like this. So it will help us to rotate the hands properly, just like this, as you can see on the screen. And now we will provide some rotation keyframes just like this. Like firstly, the axe is in the horizontal position. Then it's going up, then again it's coming back to its original position, like someone is digging, someone is using the axe for digging, Like first it's going up, then it's coming back down, just like this, as you can see. And to smooth out the motion, we will click Easy Eases to make the motion smooth, just like this. If we can see, like we have kind of achieved our required look. So everything looks good till now. So there is a small extra section in the axe part that you can see on the top of the head of the miner. So we will remove that part with the help of the mask tool, just like this. And we will change the mask setting from add to subtract. Now, for the previous rotation keyframes that we have applied on the axe controller, we need to loop out all of these things to the infinite time, meaning the length of the composition. So we will write down the expression by alt-clicking on the rotation button. We will write down the expression loop out cycle, and we will change some settings with the help of keyframes to get the required look. We will just select all the keyframes, and by alt-clicking, we can change the keyframe duration accordingly. And if you can see, like we are kind of getting our required look. And the next thing, to give the whole scene a little bit more natural feel, we will use the puppet tool on the body to give a natural shake to the head. Like whenever someone is using an axe to dig something, they swing the axe upward in the forward direction. And with this, the head is also going backward. So for providing that particular motion, we will use the puppet tool, and we will animate the puppet which is on the head, just like this. Now, as you can see, the things are a bit more natural. And after doing this, again, we will alt-click on the stopwatch button, and again, we will write down the expression loop out cycle. Now, if you can see that everything is working fine, and the things have a little bit of natural motion, so there are some adjustments that we need to do. The sync between the axe going upward and the head going backward is not the same, so we will just change the keyframe timing accordingly, just like this. So we will change the timing of the keyframes of the puppet tool with the keyframes of the rotation of the axe. And now you can see, like everything looks fine, and we are kind of getting the natural movements as we want. The next thing that we need to do is to make another null object by selecting the previous axe controller and the body, so we can control the position, rotation, and size properties of the miner. So after making the null object, again to give a little bit more extra features to the whole motion, we will apply some rotation motion to the whole miner. Like whenever the axe is going upward, we will just rotate the whole miner a little bit backward, and whenever the axe is going forward, we will again rotate the miner a little bit forward. It is not required, but you can do it if you want. Again, we need to apply the same expression by clicking on the rotation. Write down the expression loop out cycle. Now you can see that whenever the axe is going upward, the whole body is going slightly bent towards the backside, and that is what we wanted. And again, we will just sync out the previous keyframes with the old axe controller keyframes. Again, we will select all the keyframes, and we will pre-compose them as miners. The reason we did that is we want to apply some textures to it, so it will look more kind of natural, and have a really good cinematic feel to the whole animation. So we will add our texture, and we will reduce the size of the texture, and just make an extra duplicate of the miner layer, and change the texture to the miner, and change the blending mode to overlay. And now, if you can see, it will kind of give you a really good look.
Now, if you can see in the original video, the whole situation is a little bit more darker. The miner is facing his face on the right side, and in our editing, the miner is facing his head on the left side, so we will just select, we will go into the miner layer and go into the null object and just right-click on the null object and select the flip horizontal button.
To create a darkened effect on the mirror, we'll apply a solid black layer. Create a solid layer and generate an oval mask. Set the track matte of the black solid layer to the mirror layer. Then, increase the mask feather to achieve the desired soft edge. You can refine the shape by adjusting the ellipse tool's control points. To address the issue of the X moving out of frame, reduce the overall size of the mirror layer using a null object as a controller. Rename the main layer to main. We'll proceed to create the oil rig. I've prepared a PNG for this. Import the PNG and create a new composition named Oil Rig. Open the pre-comp and import the PNG. To remove the background, apply a Luma key effect. Select Key Out Brighter and adjust the threshold to approximately 70 to 80, or to your preference. Duplicate the oil rig PNG and create masks to isolate the sections we want to animate. Create separate masks for the upper and lower sections of the oil rig. Our objective is to animate the upper section of the oil rig, simulating the pumping motion. To do this, adjust the anchor point of the upper section to the desired rotation point. To automate the rotation, Alt-click the rotation stopwatch and apply a JavaScript expression. Use the expression math, sine time, the 10 multiplier controls the amplitude of the rotation. To adjust the speed, multiply time by a factor such as 2 or 3. Now, let's assemble the main composition, incorporating the train tracks, background, and other elements. Import all necessary assets and enable 3D for each layer. Pre-compose the track layer as background. Make the background layer 3D and activate the 2-view layout. The goal is to align the train tracks in 3D, creating the illusion of the train moving along them. Adjust the XYZ rotation, orientation, and other transform properties to achieve the desired alignment. Experiment with the position and transform properties to fine-tune the alignment. Ensure the train tracks align with the train's wheels. To create the illusion of forward motion, animate the position of the train track layer, moving it backward. Address the issue of the smoke layer being cut off. In the previous composition, the smoke layer extends beyond the composition boundaries. Increase the composition width for all relevant pre-comps, including the texture and tint layers. With the core elements in place, we'll add the background sky layer, which includes mountains, or in this case, factories. Import the PNG and position it far behind the other layers in 3D. Scale the background layer to cover the entire frame. To create a parallax effect, animate the background layer's position, moving it at a slower speed than the train. Address the issue of the background image's limited size by applying the CC reptile effect. Increase the expand right parameter to approximately 800 and adjust the blending borders setting. Next, import the miner and oil rig assets and position them within the 3D environment, referencing the original video or arranging them to your preference. To address the background's sharp edges, we masked and feathered the background pre-comp layer. The oil rig layer was then positioned, enhancing the scene's depth. To maintain perspective, the oil rig layer was parented to the background layer, ensuring it moved in sync with the background animation. Addressing the background layer's limited size, we applied the CC reptile effect, expanding it as needed. Further oil rig pre-comps were imported and placed at varying depths, creating a cinematic feel by positioning some rigs closer to the camera. To correct the oil rig's linear movement, we manually adjusted its position, creating keyframes to simulate it passing across the camera's field of view. Fine-tuning the position keyframes ensured a smoother motion. Another oil rig layer was added behind the train, mirroring the original video's composition of 3 oil rigs and 3 miners. The miner layer was imported, made 3D, and placed appropriately. To maintain perspective, it was parented to the train track layer. Further miner layers were added, mirrored horizontally, and positioned in the 3D environment. These were also parented to the background layer. To improve the scene's composition, the assets were repositioned for a more balanced distribution. The factory PNG was imported and positioned in the background, creating the illusion of an oil industry. The factory layer was pre-composed. A texture layer was added. Its blending mode set to multiply, and a tint effect was applied. And its composition width was increased to accommodate more factories. And the CC reptile effect was applied to both the factory and texture layers. The texture's scale was also adjusted. To create a parallax effect, manual position keyframes were added to the factory pre-comp, simulating a slower backward movement. The visibility of the oil rigs and miners was addressed by adjusting tint colours, particularly in the train section, to enhance contrast. An overlay texture was added to the main composition, its blending mode set to overlay, and its opacity reduced. The background pre-comp and sky layer were desaturated. To simulate depth of field, a Gaussian blur was applied to the oil rig layer closest to the camera, and optionally to the close miner layer. A vignette effect was added, using a black solid layer with an elliptical mask and increased feathering, enhancing the cinematic look and masking the blank space. An adjustment layer named Tint was added, reducing the overall tint to 30% to blend the elements. A particle overlay image was imported, its blending mode set to screen, and duplicated to cover the composition. Our next objective is to construct the building layers. To initiate this, we will create a new pre-composition layer, which we will name Buildings, and precisely adjust the width and height to our specifications. Subsequently, we will import our building asset files. Following this, we will replicate the size and positioning process within the 2D environment, ensuring accurate alignment. To introduce variation, we will duplicate these layers and reposition them within the same environment. To further differentiate the buildings, we will employ a horizontal flip and strategically position them. Additional refinements will be made later. To enhance visual diversity, we will apply the tint or tritone effects. By altering the colours within these effects, we can create distinct appearances for each building. Next, we will proceed to pre-compose all the building assets within this building layer into a single pre-composition named BB. We will then apply a texture to this pre-composition. To achieve this, we will import the texture and duplicate the BB layer. We will then apply a track matte to the texture layer, using the duplicated BB layer as the matte. We will then create a new composition named New Main and import our previous main composition into it. This step is crucial for facilitating position animations of the entire main layer. An alternative method would be to create a null object and parent all the layers within the main composition to it. However, this approach is more laborious. Therefore, we will opt for pre-composition. After importing all the sections, we will import the building section and position the buildings within the 3D environment, referencing the original video. You can experiment with scaling, rotation, and position adjustments to achieve the desired aesthetic within the 3D space. Position animations will also be implemented here. Furthermore, we will create additional building layers by duplicating and repositioning buildings within the BB pre-composition. We will now address necessary adjustments. Initially, we will create position keyframes based on the original video, ensuring that buildings transition out of the frame seamlessly. However, to ensure the buildings cover the entire composition width, we will adjust their forward position. We will rectify an oversight. The CC vignette effect was not applied to the building layer. We will copy and paste this effect from the previous main layer to the new main layer. As observed in the original video, the final building exiting the frame coincides with the departure of the previous layer, functioning as a transition. To replicate this effect, we will apply a mask layer and animate it. We will create a rectangular mask and synchronize its animation with the building's exit from the frame. We have achieved significant progress, with the buildings and the main layer transitioning out of the frame in unison. We will now refine the mask animation to ensure a seamless transition. We will add an extra keyframe to the mask path and adjust the mask to encompass the entire composition. The overall animation, including the train and other elements, is now visually compelling. Further enhancements can be made to refine the animation. We will now apply an adjustment layer named Optical Compensation and apply the Optical Compensation effect. We will increase the field of view to approximately 30 and enable reverse lens distortion to add subtle detail. Subsequently, we will apply the Add Grain effect, selecting Final Output as the viewing angle. We will choose a preset that aligns with our aesthetic and reduce the opacity slightly. Now in the second part, we will recreate this Yahoo video. First, we'll import our assets and create a new folder titled Assets. The video features a world map emerging from a textured surface accompanied by animated text. We'll construct each scene sequentially. For our initial scene, we'll create a new solid layer. Using the color picker, we'll select a reference color. However, finding the exact shade challenging, we'll opt for the fill effect, and again, sample the reference color. To enhance the visual, we'll increase the brightness of this color to 100%, resulting in a more appealing tone. Our next objective is to create the bright, central area of the composition. To achieve this, we'll add an adjustment layer and apply the deep glow effect. We'll then create a mask in the center and increase its feathering. By accessing the mask settings, we'll increase the feather to approximately 200 to 300 pixels. Next, we'll add the black bars. This is straightforward. We'll create a black solid and mask out the bar areas. We'll create a mask and change its mode from Add to Subtract. To refine the mask, we'll use the Selection tool, select the mask path, and adjust the points slightly. With the base setup complete, including the black bars, we'll begin constructing the individual scenes. Each scene will be a pre-composition, which will then compile into the final composition for rendering. The first scene features a world map emerging from a textured surface with animated text. We'll create a pre-composition named World and import our original video into it. Importing the world map, we'll adjust its scale and remove the white areas using the Luma key effect. We'll set the key type to Key Out Brighter and increase the threshold to approximately 15 to 20 pixels, eliminating any residual white edges. After adjusting the scale, we'll address the subtle shadow beneath the world map. Instead of a standard drop shadow, which wouldn't match the light direction, we'll duplicate the world map layer and reduce its opacity to 20 to 30%. This creates a realistic shadow effect. Next, we'll create the animated texture. We'll use the ellipse tool to create several shapes. For greater control, I'm using 5 ellipse shapes. To animate the size of these ellipses, I'm using the Motion Bar plugin. I'll select the size property of one ellipse, use the Select Matching Properties function, and then animate the size from 0 to the desired value. We'll then refine the timing of these animations. To add further complexity, we'll apply the Wiggle Paths effect. Again, using the Motion Bar plugin, we'll adjust the size and detail properties of the wiggle paths. We'll also set the wiggles per second to 0. To enhance the texture, we'll apply the turbulent displace effect, adjusting the amount, size, and complexity. This achieves the desired visual effect. We'll then pre-compose this layer and name it Texture, as we'll reuse it in subsequent compositions. We'll duplicate this pre-composition and use it with different track mats. Duplicating the texture layer, we'll set the world map layer's track mat to this texture layer. To ensure the texture covers the entire map, we'll adjust the size of the ellipse paths within the texture pre-composition. Following the reference video, we'll add the text We'll duplicate the Yahoo layer, edit the text, and adjust its position and scale. To animate the text reveal, we'll duplicate the most valuable layer twice and mask each copy, animating the mask paths. Next, we'll create a pre-composition for the text Company in the World, named Text. This pre-composition will be reused later. We'll add the text, adjust its font and position, and create a null object for animation control. We'll then import this text pre-composition into the world pre-composition and adjust its position and scale. To animate the text position, we'll create keyframes based on the reference video and refine the graph editor. Finally, we'll import the world pre-composition into the final composition. To animate the scene's entrance, we'll create an adjustment layer and apply the optical compensation effect. We'll animate the field of view and add a null object for rotation control. We'll also adjust the scale of the optical compensation layer to correct any color distortions. Our next objective is to create the laptop layer, which features a world map animation and accompanying text. To accomplish this, we will employ similar methodologies to those used previously. First, we will establish a new composition named Globe with HD dimensions. We will import the original video. Subsequently, we will create the necessary assets, excluding the background. We will import the laptop PNG and apply effects to it. Initially, we will apply the Luma key effect, selecting Key Out Brighter and adjusting the threshold to approximately 130 to 140. These settings can be tailored to your preference. To refine the laptop's appearance, we will apply the Fill effect, setting the color to black. We will then duplicate this layer, remove the fill effect, and mask out the area below the keyboard. We will adjust the mask feather to blend the edges seamlessly. We will create another duplicate layer and mask out the keyboard section. The mask opacity will be reduced to retain keyboard details. The goal is to achieve a distinct look for the screen, the area below the keyboard, and the keyboard itself. Next, we will import the website icon and arrow assets. We will position the website icon and create a duplicate, increasing its size and reducing its opacity to create depth. We will then place the arrow asset and adjust its transform parameters. To replicate the white outline around the arrow, we will duplicate the arrow layer, increase its size, apply the fill effect with white color, and position it behind the original arrow. To avoid editing issues, we will duplicate the texture layer within the composition itself. We will then apply a texture transition to the layer. We will apply a track matte to the texture layer, using the laptop layer as the matte, and adjust the timeline accordingly. We will parent the texture and cursor icons to their respective layers and apply a rotation animation to the globe layer. Alternatively, a null object can be used for this purpose. We will animate the rotation based on the original video. Next, we will add the text layer, most visited website on the internet. We will copy and paste a previous text layer, modify the text, and position it appropriately. We will then add another text layer with a background. Import the new text and animate its position and mask to appear from behind the laptop. To animate the most visited text, we will create two masks and adjust their timing. We will then import the globe composition into our main composition and animate its position and scale, applying motion blur for a smoother effect. Our next scene involves a coin layer and numerical text animation. We will create a new composition, $128 billion, and import the original video. We will import the money bag icon, adjust its transform parameters. We will apply a texture transition to the icon. We will duplicate the icon increase its size, and reduce its opacity to create depth. Duplicating the texture layer within the composition and using track mats. We will then animate the text, $128, using a slider control and expressions to display whole numbers with a $sign. We will add the text $1 billion and animate its position and mask. We will import this composition into our main composition and animate its position and scale. Our fourth scene features a GUI logo and text animation. We will create a new composition, Google, and import the original video. We will create a large G text layer. Duplicate it and adjust its size and opacity. We will add the text layers in the world, '90s, they had the chance to buy Google for just and Yahoo said no. We will import this composition into our main composition and animate its position and rotation. Our final scene, Rise and Fall, involves arrow and text animations. We will create a new composition and import the original video. We will import the arrow PNGs, position them, and apply a texture transition. We will add shadow effects by duplicating the arrows and adjusting their size and opacity. We will add the text layers, "Welcome to the Dramatic." Rise and fall. And animate them using masks and position animations. We will import this composition into our main composition and animate its position. To enhance the visual appeal, we will add a particle overlay. We will apply the luma key effect, adjust the threshold, and apply a blur effect. The animation is now complete, and we have successfully recreated the original video.